Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. 40. It is. Eric Crouch. 15, 10.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, this is Blake, my brother Brooks. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, like whatever.
We're here with Sleep in the Eyes.
Sleep in the eyes. Yeah, we're doing this.
We're
doing this Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Had some extenuating circumstances. I live in Florida, so we had those storms passing through. So didn't know
You
if I
had
was
to
gonna
watch
get
the
blown
news
away.
for 2 days.
Basically, yeah. Shutter up my house and not like shutter up my house, but like put storm shutters on and take them away, and yeah, it's just a lot of work.
Yes.
Anyway,
for nothing too. That wasn't even that crazy of a storm. Ended up being.
We had a couple tornadoes in our area like before the storm got there, but then like once the storm was here, it was just.
I heard that it was still going strong, and then once the eye of the storm made landfall, it pretty much just collapsed immediately.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
Yeah. The eye barely survived landfall.
Yeah.
Honestly. Which is good. But there was still a lot of flooding on the West Coast.
Which is crazy because Florida's like 120 miles wide. I mean, it's not a huge landmass for a storm to go across, right? It's 120 miles wide. Isn't that about what it is? Roughly. It's got to be around there.
It's not super.
It's not super wide. You can drive across Florida in 2 hours? Is it 2 hours across? Florida? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just drive across, because
like they don't. It's not grid. It's not like a complete grid the whole way up the state.
Yeah, I mean, to get to Tampa, which is right here, where I live is down here. Yeah, I have to drive either this way across and then up, or this way across and then down. So
it's kind of like back in the day from Kansas driving to Omaha to tie it back into Huskers. You had to go from Kansas, and the highway just happened to take you into 3 other states or whatever. It was like Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, then Nebraska. But anyway, happy bye week. Happy bye week. I'm ready to watch some stress-free football. Not quite stress-free for me because I got some parlays going, but stress-free for Husker fandom. So
yeah,
how you feeling?
Well, that this whole week would have been really bad. Especially bad for me if we would have lost. So we haven't really gotten to talk about this yet, but we did end up pulling out a W right before the bye week against Rutgers, 14-7. Honestly, it could have been much worse than that because of how our defense was playing, and our offense just stalled out and shot themselves in the foot. But anyways, it was still a win against a undefeated opponent.
And what's that make? 2 in a row.
I thought we were doing. I thought 3 in a row was our.
No. 2 in a row. 2 in a row is a streak, man. As soon as you get 2 in a row, that's what starts the streak. So 2 in a row.
All right.
2 in a row.
All right, 2 in a row. Yeah, no. So again, 14-7. Lots of good things in the game, especially from the defense. Outside of one series where they ended up scoring, the defense really held their own. They even got put in some bad situations. And we're able to come away with it. So it was, it was encouraging, especially from a team that wants to run the ball and kind of has the same identity that Illinois had, and was undefeated at that point and had some marquee wins. They had beat Virginia Tech. I mean, we talked about it. They beat Virginia Tech. They had beat Washington.
And Monangai was a better back than anything Illinois had, by the way, I think. I mean, I don't know if the discrepancy with Illinois versus Rutgers is like we played better, or Illinois has better benches, or I don't know. But
no, and they're still well coached. They're not trying to still establish themselves. So, and again, it's not 1-for-1 in college football. Like teams just have off weeks, which
and matchups. I try to hit on that a lot. Matchups, man. It's a big thing.
our talent level really showed. We were definitely the most talented team, even though it was only 14-7. The game never really felt out of control until like maybe the fourth quarter when they
Yeah,
got
there was a
within a
couple
score.
of key
And
moments that our defense just stepped
Yeah.
up. Like there was they got the ball. We had a punt blocked, and they get the ball on like the 10-yard line. It was goal to go like immediately right as they get the ball. And so all of a sudden it's like defense got to go out there for a goal line stand. We've kind of seen that our offense is starting to get stuck in the mud at this point. So we're kind of like, okay, defense has got to step up here. And I got to tell you, going into that series of plays, I thought to myself, I was like, okay, this is Illinois this year. Like Illinois last year, we had to do the goal line stand, and then from then it was like, okay, it's our game. But in this one, it was late in the game, and man, like I said, going into it, I felt like, okay, we're gonna do this. I feel like we can do this. And the first play was sketchy. They called it a no touchdown, and it's one of those plays that if it's called a no touchdown on the field, it's going to stay a no touchdown, and if it's called a touchdown on the field, stay a touchdown. So it was controversial, but the play later, John Bullock meets Manangai in the hole, gets stymied right off the bat, but then keeps his legs moving, has support of his defense behind him. It was just, and then there's a play, like one play I really want to hit on of this goal line stand was Singleton. Yeah, Singleton. So like we had a number of touchdowns against Illinois that were just tight ends leaking out in the flat. And like that seemed to be a big problem. And that's been a big problem with our team for a long time, honestly, like with Bo Pelini and a lot of that stuff. And it was just really nice.
Hard to defend. So
it is. But you got to key in on it. Like you got to know it's coming. You got to key in on it. And you got, I mean, like,
you have to know that's coming.
Yeah. And that's what Singleton did. I mean, he read it, and then he just was like, okay, time to freaking pursue. And man, that guy didn't gain a yard. So that was maybe the best defensive moment of the season so far. I mean, you can talk about Tommy Hill's pick six and all that, but I don't know, that for my money, that goal line stand against Rutgers is probably the best defensive moment of the season,
especially because of how much time was left in the game.
Yeah.
And how our offense was playing. That was huge.
Yeah, it won the game for us.
And it really did. Like the defense really, I mean, it was a defensive performance. Let's
it was
ourselves. Outside of a couple good offensive plays by some single people. It was a terrible performance by one person in particular. And it was kind of funny because the narrative before the season was going to be like, this Rutgers game is going to be Dylan Rahula's freshman moment. And he really hasn't had one like really bad, right? He's always kind of figured it out. And
still, I would kind of argue not truly really bad compared to what we've seen.
I know. Well, I mean, in comparison to like I guess. But like, and then the narrative leading up to this week is like, oh no, he already got that out of the way with the Illinois game. But anybody that really watched the Illinois game kind of saw it.
He didn't play
really.
terrible. Yeah.
No. He had his freshman moment, and
for sure.
And he was missing throws. He looked rattled. He looked confused. I'm not sure whether it was just he not ready. He'll get it figured out. I don't think this is like a trend downwards, right?
Yeah.
But it is kind of concerning to see some particular things that can get him rattled, especially when he's not being clean in the pocket. So that again, this is where a good coordinator is supposed to come in and say, okay, how can I make that not happen? Why are we stalling? Why are we doing this? And, earlier on in the year when we stalled in the second half, or we just stalled in general, we kind of were like, okay, well, we're up by so much, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But now when you need to put games away, you can't stall. You can't have that happen. Some of the play calling was just pretty bad. Some of the coaching decisions, just from Rule 2, they have a problem at running back specifically, finding out who the hot hand is. Just that day.
Agreed.
Like thank goodness they found it out in the Purdue game. They
just kind of, and it was Emmett that day.
It was Emmett that day. Yeah. But then Emmett got the start. It was not Emmett's day.
No, it wasn't.
Trying to kind of force it in there, and it was.
And Ramir showed them enough. Yeah,
it was obvious that it was Ramir's day, right?
Yeah,
it was obvious.
Yeah,
right?
It was.
And at this point, he's the most consistent back, and they had him starting for the first of the season, right? So just run with him, and then you just cycle through, find the hot hand, and run with it. run with
Yeah, I
it,
mean, like, we
right?
only really he only really can't be in there. I mean, I guess can't is a strong word, but you really only don't want Ramir in there in power situations,
Power
right?
situations, yeah.
But he can still manage that okay if he's in there for that. We've seen him do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ramir was totally the hot hand the other day. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And real quick, back to the Raiola conversation. Dylan Raiola, he had an off game, no doubt about it. And he had one play where it was an RPO. And what happened was the backer showed that for about 2 steps that he was going to go down, like that he was coming downfield towards the run. And then Raiola read that, and as soon as he pulled it up, the backer leaked back and he threw it right to him, just didn't see him. So
You're being a little gracious. The backer
well, that's what
didn't
happened.
even
I mean,
you're being a little gracious though. I've watched the play and I watched it over and over and over again. He didn't show enough for him to throw that ball with as much
it was a bad
confidence as he did, right?
read, but that's what happened. He's just trying to let you into like what Dylan was thinking in that moment. You know, like that's the guy he's reading. And I mean, look, we saw me play CFB last night and I almost won. I really should have won. But those, you throw interceptions. It's something you can do sometimes. And my other thing is, think about it this way. Like the way we think about Jeff Brom as this like offensive genius coach, right? And he is. Greg Schiano is that, but for the defensive side, he really is. He's like that level of defensive coach. So I don't think it needs to be lost in the conversation that like if you look across the NFL and even college football, like the top of college football, like people have off games. Sometimes some weeks players get figured out. Nico Iamaleava was supposed to be the Heisman candidate, blah, 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 blah. And then he just, got figured out against Arkansas. And then you think about CJ Stroud. That's the one I really wanted to talk about. CJ Stroud, everybody agrees he's awesome, right? We all generally agree these days that he's awesome. But 2021, we went to that game. We went to the game of Ohio State playing Nebraska, and CJ had maybe the best wide receiving core of the last 15 years in college football at his disposal. And he threw 2 picks to a walk-on, and great plays by JoJo. I mean, like not diminishing any of that. I'm just saying really good players have off weeks sometimes. And so I'm ready to see Raiola bounce back from this.
It's not a cause for concern.
Yeah,
it's not. I'm more concerned about the play calling again. And how we are stalling out and being a little bit predictable at times. Listen, and Sat is also not getting helped out when he does go call a play and it's just not being executed, right? He dials up some stuff at the perfect time. I'm like, wow, awesome. Yeah. And they don't hit, right? He either overthrows a ball, throws it bad. The receiver just doesn't run a good route.
That like trap sweep concept to Bonner that he called, that was really nifty. I mean, if I'm a linebacker, I'm just thinking about the flow of it, and it's like, man, I would have gotten lost in the wash on that play for sure.
And listen, because I'm not like completely like out on Sat. Right. I've seen it, right? It's just being the consistency, right? Consistency, and then being smart in the right times. Like, just run it. Mm-hmm. Like we were dominating the line of scrimmage. That's something that even with our banged up offensive line, we really were, right? But when you're dropping it back to pass, it's really easy for them to just pin their ears back and get pressure. You gotta figure out how to like disguise some runs and just run the ball.
The consistency thing angle with Sat is kind of interesting, right? Because if you think about it, like when he got hired in as Nebraska's offensive coordinator, and we all did our research on Marcus Satterfield, we realized that like we were all kind of hanging our hat on one game. You know what I mean? This performance, this incredible like 700-yard, 70-point performance that Rattler in South Carolina had against like it was like a top 5 team. It was like Tennessee or somebody like that. And we were like, see, he can do it. He can have these explosive offenses. But now here we are talking about consistency. And now I'm thinking back to how we were hanging our hat on one game and not even a whole season. And you know what I mean?
Listen, like the first time we talked about him, I remember this. First time we talked about him, what did I say? Consistency. It's like he has some really great games as a coordinator, has some really bad ones. Whether that's on him or a very spotty quarterback in Rattler is to be determined. That's what I said, almost verbatim. Now you're kind of looking at it.
Yep.
He has 2 years under the belt now, and he did the same thing last year. Very inconsistent, kind of didn't look at the pieces. He was trying to force a square peg into a round hole with Harburg. So like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's,
Have you ever seen
why-
that? Have you ever seen that YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever where it's like, this is the square. It goes into the square hole. This is the circle. It also goes into the square hole. And then, like
Yeah.
they do it with every single shape.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Satterfield's trying to do.
Yeah.
And us
Yeah.
Husker Nation are just the girl just crying, just OCD.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, yeah. So yeah, we were talking. What were we talking about before I mentioned that? We were talking about Sat.
Sat and
yeah.
consistency, and that's
Yeah.
like I think our biggest thing right now. And again, it can be figured out, and some of it again is not all on him. Some of it is on player execution. But when the offense stalls, that is your job as a coordinator to figure something out to get it back on track. That is your job. So, and it's also the job of Glenn Thomas too.
Yeah.
We can't let him off the hook because guess what? He's co-OC. He's co-OC.
No doubt.
So, and listen, I don't. Again, you're right about Shiano and his defenses and everything. But guess what? They're not the strength really this year. They've given up a lot of yards.
They have. I'm
A
just
lot of
saying
yards.
schematically, like you knew Shiano was gonna figure out something
out
of how to
something.
slow down Rayola. You know, you knew he was gonna be able to disguise some things and say, okay, I see what he's doing. And halfway through, he's a really good coach at making defensive adjustments.
Yeah.
So that there's something to be said. I'm not saying that's the whole story, but there's something to be said to that for sure.
Yeah. By the way, he's such a prick calling it his last time out when the clock could have just run out.
Yeah, and they've
What a
coached
prick.
together, like they know each other. Like that's
It's just
know,
a disrespect.
yeah. I think they coached together at Penn State back in the day. I'm not entirely sure of where the connection actually is, but I know there's a connection there with Shiano and Rule. So yeah, I mean, I think Shiano's just kind of like that old ball coach that's just gonna like the you know, it's more just like what's in between the lines is what's in between the lines, and what's outside the lines is what's outside the lines with him. You know,
Yeah.
he's very competitive, very very competitive, which is commendable. You have to be competitive in that position. So
yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see if we have a bye week now. Last year, the Rule was able to come off a bye week and get a really big win, an away game, and an opponent that everybody expected to beat us at Illinois. So he has a chance to do it again with Indiana. We'll talk about that this week. But anything else with the Rutgers game that you really
a couple of maybe individual performances I maybe wanted to just hit on real quick. James Williams, it's just like, man, he's starting to look like a real high level pass rusher. Like he's filled out a little bit more this year. He's the leading sack getter on the team. Tied for it with Ty Robinson. They both have 4 sacks. So in the last 2 games, Williams has recorded 4 sacks in 2 games. It's a good line. And also the sacks in this last game were very clutch from him. Like he had 1.5 sacks, I believe, on the final drive where it was just like he won us the game basically with the pass rush. So James Williams definitely deserves an individual shout out.
Yeah. And so does Brian Bushini.
Oh yeah, forgot about him. Yeah,
listen,
100%.
First drive of the game is a 3 and out, and you knew that they were going to dial up some pressure. Shiano's really good at special teams. That way, blocking kicks, right?
Yeah.
So you knew that they were going to dial it up. They did. You saw it coming, and he just got wrecked. He got wrecked. Yep. First punt of the game, barely a minute in. Right.
You texted me right after we're gonna lose. Like we're losing this game.
Because the offense looked bad.
Yeah.
It couldn't even get a punt off.
No. But they did enough. They did enough.
They did enough. But he came back in, obviously in pain. Should have thrown a touchdown pass if Lloyd can make one freaking guy miss.
Yeah.
Lloyd is so fast. He's so talented. Dude, have a little bit of shake.
Okay, so he laid a move on him and it did something. Okay, it got the guy shook a little bit. Like it was 80% where it needed to be to make the guy completely miss, but the guy just got that 20% and he had that shoestring tackle. So Lloyd made a juke move on him that was pretty nice. It was just that didn't juke him out. Shoestring tackle, it happens.
Yeah,
so.
but
that doesn't happen to Ryan Williams. There's levels to this game. The guy for Alabama. There's levels to this game.
Exactly.
So,
and again,
anyway,
he's still young. He'll figure it out.
Right.
I'm just saying
Right.
he has so much breakaway speed. Just
He does.
yeah.
The game's accurate. The
And
college
again, and
football
again,
25
and
is
again,
accurate.
and again, sometimes people like that are very bad. Xavier
Yes.
Worthy is not a juke guy
No.
with the Chiefs now. He was
Mhm.
at Texas. He was just boop, I'm gonna run.
They're kind of
So
utilizing him like we are Ja'Cory Barney right now, aren't they? Isn't that pretty
yes,
much how they're yeah.
kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, but Buschini came back in, and not just like coming back in and fighting through it. He had some booming punts,
Mhm.
obviously in pain,
Mhm.
still with pressure. They tried to block every single kick, and he
Mhm.
got him away. And he
I mean,
got Big Ten special teams player of
yeah,
the week.
punt of the
So
year so far, at least from him. I mean,
the
I don't
second one,
pay attention to everybody's punter everywhere, but punt of the year so far from Buschini for sure was late in the game. There's like 2 minutes left in the game, pretty much, just over 2 minutes. And we're punting. You know, we got the ball back thinking time to 4-minute offense, run the clock down, and we get freaking stopped again. So now we got to punt and give the ball back to him. And so and Buschini even said, Brett Maher came up to him before the punt and said, okay, like this is your opportunity to put the game away, because if you can pen them back, like it really helps put the game away. And he did 69-yard punt, giggity, and you know, solid. I mean, exactly when we needed it too, you know, and rolling out of bounds, not a 69-yard punt on a line the opposite side of the field where, you know what I mean, like
or somebody
so,
can return it for a
yeah.
touchdown.
So yeah, where somebody
Because yeah, and this game was, I think, a
shout
turning
out Caleb
point.
Lightbourne.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy.
Sorry, buddy. But let's not. This game again, 14-7. It's not a beatdown. Could have been if the offense came to play. But you have to look at it one way, because halfway through the game, I was texting you and I was like, just feels like a Scott Frost game, doesn't it? Just feels like, you know, we're gonna be ahead up until like the last minute of the game. We're gonna give it up. This, for those people that were on those Scott Frost teams or the team last year, even this game was probably really huge. This one and the Purdue game. So they have now had 2 close games in the fourth quarter, and they have put it away, right? More put it away in the Purdue game, but they were able to survive and win the game with Rutgers. So that is really important for your psyche as a player, to not go, oh, here we go again, right? Because even if they're like, no, we got it this time, there's a little voice in the back of your head like, I don't know. Now they've done it a couple times. I think they're going to be able to you know, if the same thing that goes for like the Illinois. I think if we had these 2 games first and they played out exactly the same, I think we probably would pull that out now, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, agree. I actually agree with that.
big.
I actually agree.
Really,
you know, I
really
actually
big
do
for
agree
the
with that.
psyche.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. If we played Illinois this week, I think maybe we beat them. But anyway, it's also from a fan's perspective. Okay, from a fan's perspective, we've been through the ringer the last 7 years, right? Where it's like we've had these years where sometimes it even feels like, okay, maybe this is turning around, and then they lose the last 6 games or whatever it is. It's just like it's been crazy. So from my perspective as a fan going into this Rutgers game, what I was saying was, okay, we win this Rutgers game, and I'm not worried about bowl eligibility anymore. You know, like the baseline worry of me was like, oh, could this be a bowl? I don't know, no more bowl eligibility. But with the Rutgers win, that's a tough win, and I believe that there's 3 very winnable games left on the schedule where it's like, bro, we can take at least one of those and we're going to get bowl eligible for sure.
So that's the thing, though. That's the psyche thing they need to get over.
Yes,
getting
for sure.
Bowl eligible, right?
And that might be tough because of the next 2 weeks, you know. So
exactly,
yeah.
Because if we drop the next 2, it could start skidding, just like it did last year.
For sure,
that team got so tight butthole through the last couple of games of the season last year. And that because they're like, oh, we're so close. Oh, we're so close. Oh, not again. Oh, not again. And that does play a factor.
Yep.
Now, whether they're thinking that or not, who knows? Probably there's a little part of them that is they want to do more than just get to a bowl. They do.
Yeah.
They're definitely talented to do that. And they're in a good position now to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And this day and age in college football too, you got to start moving your goals up because the playoff right now is 12 teams, And we're already seeing it where like the playoff is emphasized over everything else. Bowls are mattering less and less and less. And what's probably going to eventually happen is they'll move to 14 teams. I see 16, I see 20, I see 24. You know what I mean? I hope they don't get much bigger than that. Like, because once it gets bigger than 24 teams, it's like, you know, that'll be a little bit convoluted. But if you can get to like 24 teams, by that point, the bowls don't even matter anymore. And the measuring stick is, did you get to the playoff? That's pretty much where it's going, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So
See, here's the thing with football specifically. There's a reason that the NFL doesn't have that many teams in the
I know.
postseason, right? You can't go
No,
more
I
than
agree.
that. You really can't.
Mhm. But I think they're
So
going to, regardless of what we think or not. I think they're going to. It is going to happen. So if it does happen, because these big conferences are demanding auto bids. They're demanding them, and if they're going to demand those auto bids, it has to be expanded for everybody to be happy. Really. So
how the Big 12's playing this year and how the ACC looks, they don't deserve automatic bids.
really, you think that? I
Yeah,
think that the
I
Big
really
12,
do.
really, that's pretty controversial.
There's
I'll tell you why.
there's a lot of parity in the Big 12 right now. BYU is not going to go undefeated this season, right?
No, probably
Um,
not.
Colorado is in a driver's seat position to win the conference, right? And they're not a great team. They're an okay
Yeah.
team, but they're not a great team. K-State got boat raced by a terrible team.
So do you think like a mid-level team from the Big 10 would go into the Big 12 and just win?
Yes.
So you think like
I think Rutgers would win.
Illinois, Rutgers, Nebraska, like these levels
Yep.
of team in the Big 10.
Yep.
You think we could just
Yep.
go into the Big 12 and win?
Yep.
Maybe because there is a trench difference when you watch the leagues. There's
Yes.
a big, even when you're watching teams like Illinois, Rutgers, those teams are better than the Big 12 in the trenches, way better. And same thing with the SEC. I mean, the SEC is a little bit more perimeter speed heavy than the Big 10, and the Big 10 is more trench emphasis than the SEC is kind of where it is right now. So maybe you're right on that, but I don't know. You look around and there's teams, there's not like the Georgias and the Ohio States and the Oregons and those top levels of team that are really good. We'll see about Oregon today, I guess, but there's not those in the Big 12 and in the ACC, but I do think like overall, like there's a decent parity of teams that can all beat each other. Like Syracuse is good. Look at Cal. They've had a decent year.
Listen,
it's like these random teams.
ACC
Colorado's 4-1, like
ACC is going to come down between Clemson and Miami. That's it.
Probably.
Right.
And Miami's gotten bailed out.
Miami's gotten bailed out.
Yeah.
Clemson looks like the best team. People always look at the Georgia game, but if you watch the Georgia game, and I got so pissed the week after that game, it's like nobody watched it and they just looked at the final score, right?
Yep.
They were close. It was within one score in the fourth quarter, and then they made a couple mistakes. They couldn't move the ball on offense, and because Georgia has a great defense, and it was the first game in a hostile environment.
Yeah, tough.
It was tough. But look at them since. They're cruising, dude.
Same thing happened to Oregon. What was it, last year or 2 years ago? It was like they played Georgia in the first game of the year. It was like Dan Lanning's first year at Oregon, and they got boat raced. And everyone was like, "Oh, I guess Oregon sucks." Yeah. And then that was Oregon with Bo Nix and Dan Lanning. Like, they did some things. They were a pretty good team.
Yeah, I think they only ended up losing 2 games that season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Dan Lanning's a good coach. The big argument with Dan Lanning could be solved tonight. We'll see. And in that game's tonight, we're recording this on Saturday, October 12th. Yeah. So Dan Lanning can't win big games. That's what everybody says. He gets puckered up and he goes for it on 4th down in his own territory late in the game and does a bunch of stupid stuff. And so we'll see. I'm interested in this game tonight, but
we'll see. But
anyway, back to Nebraska.
But to round out the point,
yeah,
I just don't see the level of football play this year outside of a handful of teams that we mentioned in those conferences as a whole that I do in the SEC and the Big 10.
Sure. Absolutely.
I just don't. I don't think this year specifically, like it's the first year in the 12. I don't think they deserve automatic bids.
No,
I just don't. If that continues that way, there's gonna be a real conversation. There has to be.
Yeah.
So
and the automatic bid conversation, it's kind of like this. Like there's already sort of auto bids built in by how the SEC and the Big 10 have their clutches around every media organization, and like that, you know what I mean? Like there's like
It's where most of the
I
money
sound like
is.
a
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist right here, but it's not. It's literally look around. It's like they have aligned interest because that's who they pay the most money to.
Yeah.
So like they're going to get talked about the most, and they're going to get ranked the highest. There's your auto bid. Why do we need auto bids? You're already going to be given the most respect.
Yeah.
Doesn't, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's bad for the sport, auto bids, but you can go either or, because if you give auto bids, maybe all of a sudden other teams are getting talked about more because it's already cut and dry what's happening in the Big Ten right now. We know what's happening in the Big, you know what I mean? So, but I don't know. There's just a lot of money and interest and stuff.
Yeah.
But real quick, big picture. Yeah, you can pull that up. Big picture. We're 6 games into the season. Let's see. We have our record predictions. So what do you think about the first 6 games of the season, man? Like,
so I saw a lot of good stuff. Obviously being 5-1 into the bye, it's great because I expected 4-2.
Yeah.
So we just didn't lose to who I thought we were going to. I was just scared.
You got to change mine to 5-1 on Rutgers. Oh yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah, I do. Sorry, I'll do that right now. Yeah, no. So, oops. So this looking back was just an emotional. I just didn't want to lose to them.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, if I choose a loss, I'm not going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But my eyes were telling me what was going to happen. I said that off air too. I couldn't do it.
And look, they weren't as bad. They're not as bad as we thought they were.
No, and especially they play Kansas State tonight, right? So if they can, and Kansas State, listen, isn't like the world beaters that they were hyped up to be at the beginning of the season, but they're not a bad football team.
Still a solid program, man.
Still a solid program. They're gonna still be in the mix for the Big 12 championship.
They're 2010 Nebraska,
and yeah. And so if Colorado can go in there and not even necessarily win, but just like hold their own, that win is going to look much, much, much better.
Yeah,
it already does.
Yeah,
because they beat like a UCF team that was undefeated. And everybody was so high on. But yeah, no, going into the bye at 5-1. So you're there with me on the record prediction. You just had us losing Purdue as opposed to Illinois, but Illinois is kind of a surprise this year, so I'm not really.
They are, and I thought maybe Purdue would improve in their second year with Walters, and then we were going to have them at on the road or whatever. But
yeah, I knew that they weren't. I don't think he's a head coach. I think he's a great coordinator. But they're and then the Rutgers. I just thought we were gonna go into it, and then this game is now a much harder.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last week, but if you look at our schedule now as opposed to preseason, strength of schedule has to matter, especially if we end up beating Indiana, playing Ohio State close, and then winning out.
Yeah, we're in the playoffs.
Look at our strength of schedule. Like
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean the schedule is definitely something interesting to look at. I just was sitting here thinking for some reason like nobody's talking about Gunnar Katula, and I was trying to figure out a way to bring him up because I just wanted to give him an honor minute. Like halfway through the year, we lost our starting left tackle, who we all thought going into the year was going to be a super important position for Raiola, right? Turner Corcoran. And then it's not heavily mentioned right now because we're coming off of a really bad offensive performance, but that wasn't Gunnar's fault. But he's a redshirt freshman, stepped into that position, and like he's serviceable. He's like very serviceable. Like he's not great, but man, you got to give him
especially
credit.
Like going through camp too is Prohashka.
Yeah,
We just forget about it because he's been like now he's injury prone,
right?
But he was the starting left tackle, right?
Yeah.
So and then those guys, and so Corcoran was his backup.
Yeah,
and he was playing great. He was playing really, really good. Well, I don't know, great. Really, really good. He was playing really good.
He was playing better. He was improved. He was definitely improved. But I think Gatula, it's obvious to me right now, based off of what I've seen so far, it's like, man, he has more potential than any of those guys had. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman stepping into that situation. And I've heard a bunch of Nebraska podcasts, and nobody was giving him his credit. So I just felt like it needed to be mentioned. Shout out to Gunnar Gatula.
Sure.
Halfway through the year, you've really stepped up in an important position. So yeah. Anybody else like that you can think of, like superlatives halfway through the year?
Oh man.
Offensive MVP, defensive MVP, special teams MVP.
There's no special teams MVP.
Yeah, it's Bushini.
Here's what I think. Yeah, well, yeah.
He's even been spotty though. But anyway,
I think I could say like a big surprise that somebody that is ahead of schedule. I didn't really even give much thought to just because of what class he is, and is Ja'Cory Barney.
Oh yeah.
He has been a great surprise. And it makes so much more sense now how they want to give Malachi a red shirt. Right. And I think if we can get into a position to where our last 4 games or last maybe 3 games, we're really playing for something, he probably gets thrown in the mix here a little bit, just so he gets still like good game.
Because he's built like Nayor. He's built like Nayor and him are very similar in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a little bit faster though.
Is he? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. At least from my understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So it makes so much more sense, that move now, because I was kind of a little bewildered by that because Malachi was starting to hit a stride at the end of last year with Lloyd. Lloyd's been kind of dormant. I don't think they know how to use him because again, he's not like the most shifty, but he's fast as snot.
And he's a solid player. He's made some really good adjustments back to the ball this year.
He's made some great plays. Don't get me wrong, but like Ja'Cory Barney has been like the key centerpiece of the offense that I didn't even think was going to be a factor.
Yeah.
And he's more explosive and shifty than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
Just because you look at high school tape and it's all like,
but you never know what these guys are going to look like, how it's going to pan out.
You're going against like guys that are like, not everybody on even a starting squad in high school is even playing football because they want to play football. Sometimes they're just like, my buddy's on the team. I'm fat. Like I can be a lineman or like vice versa. So yeah.
Ja'Cory. Ja'Cory's from the Miami area, and I wanted to say something quick about that. I listened to Connor Stallions on Bussin' with the Boys the other day, and Connor Stallions, the Michigan sign stealer.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Connor Stallions.
He was on Bussin'?
He was on Bussin' with the Boys the other day. That was awesome. It was honestly an awesome podcast.
Compton.
Yeah. So, and they're very kind to him because you can think of them as a hybrid Nebraska and Michigan podcast because obviously Taylor went to Michigan. But anyway, so he talked about how he has this. They basically boiled down recruiting maps in the way that like Billy Bean did for the Athletics with Moneyball, where it was like, forget about state lines. Let's figure out what the position group breakdown is. Where are the best tackles? Where are the best skill positions? And what he basically said was the best for pretty much everything, but especially skill positions in America, without a doubt, is Miami Palmetto. So he was, I don't know. Is that a Palmetto County? Is that what the county is? In Miami?
Miami-Dade.
Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade. I don't know. Is there 2 counties I'm not sure. Anyway, Miami, the Miami area. I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But he said that is the number one area that like, if you need to be hitting on in Miami, in some form or fashion, no matter who you are. And so Ja'Cory's from Miami, and I like Vincent Shavers is from Miami. We got a couple players on this team now from that area, and I just like that we're trying to get players from that area because Scott Frost tried to do it, Mike Riley tried to do it, and it never really worked out. But now we got I think AJ Allen was from that area too. But now we got Ja'Cory, and he's a freshman, and he's the type of guy where I don't want to say like, oh, he's Tyreek Hill. He's not. That matter of fact, he's kind of a different type of player. But in the sense of like when Tyreek Hill is on the field, everybody's keying on Tyreek Hill, and like they got to worry about Tyreek Hill. It's like Ja'Cory, the way they're using him is like they'll give him the ball in those sweeps, but then they'll use him as a decoy, and it works out really good because he can hurt you. So yeah. Ja'Cory definitely needs a shout out. Defensively, any shout outs? John Bullock. That was the one I thought of. I met his mom.
There's
I met his mom.
Yeah.
My dad and I met his mom and grandma while we were standing at the player walk for the Colorado game. Really, really nice people. And it's just really cool because like I told his mom, I was like, it's really just, it's cool to see their story where, you know, both boys, AB and John, you know, where they're walk-ons, they always wanted to play for Nebraska, you know, and you know, they play. AB is still a key, like he's an unsung hero of perimeter blocking on this team.
Yep.
So, but John, more focused on John, he's absolutely taken a huge step up this year. It's like, bro, every time I see John, I'm like, hell yeah, John. Like he's just making awesome plays every game. And just shout out to John Bullock because, you know, you look at him and if you saw him like at a camp, you'd be like, maybe he doesn't have the tools, but there's something there in John Bullock's soul that just keeps him in the play, man. He's a very inspiring player to watch. I really like John Bullock. Maybe my favorite player on defense so far this year. So, anyway.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like the obvious, you know, people on defense, again, like John Bullock and everything. But I'm going to go with somebody that that did not really have a great year last year on a really good squad, but has not really been a liability this year, is Malcolm Hartzog. Like, because he had 2 years ago, he was kind of like a breakout person on the Mickey Joseph squad.
Yeah,
and we were like, okay, yeah, no, he's really young, and so everyone was really high on him going into last year. And it's not like he had a terrible year, but he was definitely, you noticed him a lot. And as a cornerback, that's never a good sign, is when you're noticing them a lot.
Yep.
So I think he's had a sneaky good start to the season. Haven't really noticed him getting burned, specifically getting burned like he did last year. So I'll throw some credit his way.
Yeah. Yep. And then one last credit is well, we already touched on it, but you know, Bushini, he's the MVP of the special teams. That's who it is. So if we were going to give an MVP to offense, it's Raiola. It has to be. He's had one bad game, but like, you know, he's changed our entire team, man. So it's Raiola.
I disagree.
Okay, go ahead. Give me your argument.
If you're gonna go offensively,
okay, go ahead.
You have to give credit to the offensive line.
Oh, for sure. But I'm just saying MVP, most valuable player.
Most valuable player is the offensive line right now.
Okay. That's not really how it works.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Most valuable player is the offensive line.
Mom, you're the MVP. My mama the MVP. They're all the MVP. No, yeah, I mean, the offensive line has played good. Okay, they've had their moments where it's like, come on, like the fourth quarter, late fourth quarter, and overtime of the Illinois game. You know, it was pretty bad. But yeah, so offensive line needs a shout out too. So anything else you can think of as far as like looking back on the first half of the season?
Yeah. I am questioning whether this is going to just sound like I'm kind of just crapping on him the whole podcast, but I'm really wondering if Raiola can step into a throw. I'm just wondering about it, right? Because it's not like he has a limp noodle of an arm or anything like that, and he has that unique throwing style like Mahomes. But you see Mahomes, and when he needs to step into it, he steps into it. I haven't seen Raiola do that yet. I'm just questioning whether he can.
Is there an NFL quarterback who doesn't do that, whose whole style is touch passes like Raiola?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got to figure that out.
You all have another gear, especially when you're trying to like, and again, he can still zip the ball, but I'm just talking about from a sheer stepping in, bam, getting in.
Look, he's leaning into, I think what it is right now is he's young. And when you're young, you lean into your most elite traits, right? As a quarterback. And right now, his most elite traits are touch on the ball and throwing a really catchable ball. Like the trajectory of it specifically makes it really catchable for receivers. Matter of fact, his touch and trajectory, I think might be the best in the country. I think that there's an argument there. His touch and trajectory is truly elite. His weakness is, like you said, we need to see him step into some throws and fire it over the middle.
He's off target the most that I've realized. Over the middle, drags, crosses. He always throws it right here. Right here.
Yep.
Instead of out here. If he gets it out here, he could have had a couple touchdowns, like to Nayor specifically. He's back here a little bit. And some of that, you look at footwork and he just kind of. So I'm like,
look, my 6th grade year of basketball, I was not very good. Okay. I was not very good at basketball my 6th grade year at all. Right. And it was embarrassing because we went to a small school and I still wasn't even very good on that team. And I was like, damn. So then in the off season, I was like, I'm going to work on this. And we had a basketball hoop in our driveway. And I was out there every day shooting and doing layups and doing all this stuff. And I come back the 7th grade year, all the 8th graders who were decent were gone. And all of a sudden I was like the best on the team. And it was like, whoa, what happened? So what I'm saying is truly elite athletes always improve. So you can think about that in the context of Raiola. It's like, there's room for improvement and he can go, he's got a lot of time to get these things figured out. Yeah. So, he can use my story as inspiration.
Sure. Again, I think he's had a great start to the year, probably better than I could have imagined. I'm just nitpicking on some things that could make him even better. I think
nitpicking is a good problem.
And listen, Glenn Thomas is going to see that stuff too. Like he's already being hammered with that, right? Yeah. So you'll see.
My main worry about the offense, man, is like even if you look at, like we talked about with Sat, even if you look at Sat's history, like even his best offenses have been just like slightly above average. You know what I mean? They haven't been like elite. They've been like in the 40s. You know what I mean? They've been good, but not elite. So we'll see. We're trying to go somewhere with this program. And I think Rule knows that. And he's trying to make every aspect of the football program elite: offense, defense, special teams. And because nobody's really talking about this, but the reality is with the structure of college football and because of where we've been before, and Rule's talked about this, it would be a bad steward of what you were given to not aim for a national title. Okay. It would. That's what we got to be aiming for at the very least. So, and if we're going to aim for a national title, you need to be able to be elite on offense, and you need to be comparing yourself to like Ohio State and Alabama and those types of teams. We're not there yet, but I'm hoping in the next 2 years we'll get to the point where we're at least looking at it and being like, okay, we're comparable to those teams, So
yeah, we're gonna lose to Vandy.
Yeah. I have Vandy today. Go Vandy. They're part of my parlay.
But yeah, no, the good start to the season, 5-1.
Great start. Yeah.
Great position to be at. Definitely in the driver's seat of our own destiny. We'll see how next week goes. We'll talk about that this week. Give our predictions. But I think that's it for me.
Yeah, it for me too. Sure. I'm ready to watch some freaking football today, man.
Yeah. Just remember, please like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
Who you got? Ohio State, Oregon. Who you got?
Ohio State
as well. Yeah. Same.
Ohio State.
Not even close.
No, not even close.
Yeah. K-State, Colorado. Who you got? Real quick. Sorry. K-State, Colorado. One more pick because I'm going to release this in the next hour.
Where's it playing?
Colorado night.
It's in Boulder.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that's why I picked them.
K-State.
K-State. Yeah. Probably if I'm objective, I'm picking K-State too. I just have money. So, and Colorado was like a fun pick for money. So anyway, subscribe.
Subscribe. Well, subscribe, and you can also listen to us on anywhere you can find audio podcasts and vice versa on YouTube, Corner.
Absolutely.
Always remember that there's no like this podcast.